Hey guys, so today we are taking viewer questions. I don't even know if it's called viewer questions. So we have 7 nutrition questions that came from us from you guys for Jonathan today. So it's going to be fun.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right.
Is there anything else we need to talk about before we get started? Any updates or news?
It's June and we ran the heater for the last 2 days.
Yeah.
That's confusing.
Might be a consistent theme in these podcasts. It's freaking cold in Idaho. I will say that today was like the first day I've gotten back to somewhat normal training after about 2 weeks off, recovering from the shingles.
Yeah.
So
depending on when we release this podcast, people may or may not know that you got the shingles.
I got the shingles. That was kind of a pain to recover from. Could have been a whole lot worse. I would say like 90% better now.
Yeah.
Hopefully all these little crazy nerve feelings go away.
Yeah.
But other than that, it felt good to do some heavy squats today, do most of the workout. So that's good.
This weekend we got to get out and go meet some friends from Houston at a coffee shop in town to get married.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I feel very fortunate to live in this city while all this is going on because it's just such an outdoorsy place. Like the coffee shops you can just walk up to, they serve outdoors, the seating's outdoors. You can walk along the green belt or waterways and stuff like that. And just like, still hang out with people, but be outdoors and be safe. So
yeah, not a million degrees outside.
Yeah, that's cool. All right,
let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so these are all nutrition-based questions that came to us from you guys. All right.
I already know the questions, so I'm gonna spoiler alert. But anyway, all right.
You don't know the order.
Okay.
Number 1, what should I eat before and after I work out? This is a very good question because I used to get this a lot at the gym as well. Yeah, this is a super common question. But before I give an answer, I want to say that there's a hierarchy to how all this stuff works. So, if you're not very far along in your nutrition journey and you're still eating a lot of processed food, you don't have any idea of how many calories you're eating, you have a lot of fat to lose, those kinds of things, like I would start with those things before you move on to really specific things about what you should eat before and after you work out. And even when you start getting into what you should eat before and after you work out, it's more important what you eat over the course of the whole day, honestly. So get really good at eating the right quantities and the amount of food and the right kind of food over the whole course of the day. And then once you're really good at that, start getting more specific into pre and post workout. Okay. So this is for like your person that's, already like dialing in their nutrition.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So
this is a pre and post workout.
Okay, so I have to break this down a little bit because people exercise at different times of the day. So let's talk about somebody who is working out first thing in the morning and they haven't eaten anything since dinner the night before. So we call that being in a fasted state, meaning your insulin levels are at a base, your blood sugar is at a base, you don't have nutrients flowing through your blood as if you had just eaten a meal. You're in what's called a catabolic state where you're not in a mode to build muscle. So we don't really like to exercise in that state, especially things like weightlifting and heavy efforts, things like sprinting, because there's more chance that you're going to break down muscle tissue when you're in that catabolic state. So if you train early in the morning in a fasted state, I would recommend that you eat, 30 minutes at a minimum before you exercise. So ideally you would have somewhere between 20 and 30 grams of protein before you train. And what that does is it gets you out of that catabolic state into an anabolic state, meaning that you've now told your muscles like, okay, it's time to get into muscle building mode, muscle preserving mode. You have those calories in your bloodstream and you're less likely to burn muscle during that workout. So that's it on the protein side. From a practical standpoint, if it's early in the morning, that probably means doing a protein shake. If you want a little extra calories, mix it with a milk or an almond milk, something like that. But a whey protein or a pea or soy protein shake, as far as protein goes. What's wrong?
I'm gonna give you time limit on these mentions.
Sorry. Hold on, there's more. I'm just getting started.
That was just morning people.
That's just morning, and that's just protein. So also, if you're training in the morning fasted, I would get some carbohydrates in your system. Carbohydrates are converted into sugar in the blood, and then that sugar is burned for energy. So try to have 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates before you work out also. The key with that is find carbohydrates that are easy for you to digest, that don't feel like they sit heavy with you. You know, personally for me, that's things like rice and rice cakes or fruit. I wouldn't get into like something really heavy like a potato that has more fiber and takes a longer time to digest. So
that'll be a learning curve for people just like to play with what their stomach can handle.
Yeah, I mean, some people even will go with liquid carbohydrates like a juice or honey or something like that. The point is just to get the carbohydrates into your blood. Okay, if you don't train first thing in the morning and you've eaten a meal within the last few hours, I wouldn't really worry about it, because if you had a meal that had an adequate amount of protein in it from like an animal source or a good vegetable source, your muscle protein synthesis rates stay elevated for 3 or 4 hours after you've eaten anyway, so you're avoiding that catabolic situation. Same thing goes with the carbohydrates. You already have carbs flowing in your blood if you have eaten within the last few hours, so don't stress about it. If you haven't, then the same rules apply than if you were training fasted, like if you haven't had a meal in several hours. So, and then as far as post-workout, it's really not that big of a deal unless you're not planning to have a meal for several hours after you work out. The idea with post-workout nutrition is the same thing as in the morning. Get your body out of that catabolic state into an anabolic state of repair and recovery, but it doesn't have to be right away. As long as you're planning to have a meal within the next few hours, don't stress about it. Same thing as in the morning. If you're not going to have a meal, get your 25 to 30 grams of protein-ish in, get some carbohydrates in to get you repairing muscle and replenishing your stored carbohydrates within a couple hours.
Okay, so do a little recap real quick.
What did I say? I don't even remember anymore now. If you train fasted in the morning, get some protein, get some carbs in, probably a shake.
Is there grams, you said?
20? Yeah, I mean, it depends on the actual protein source, but somewhere in that 25 to 30 grams of protein range.
And then after workout, if you're not planning on eating?
About the same, yeah. The trick is to trigger muscle protein synthesis, which from most protein sources takes between 20 and 30 grams if it's a high quality protein.
Did you mention the lower fat?
No, that's a good point too. So we kind of try to keep high fat meals away from our workout times because fat digests so much more slowly than proteins and carbs. So if you have a meal that has a bunch of fat in it, the whole meal is going to digest slower than it would if the meal didn't have much fat in it. So that's why we try to keep the meals on either side of a workout pretty skinny on fat, save it for other parts of the day or
stuff
snacks.
Like peanut butter or nut butters are not good for pre or post workout. And if you're looking at a bar, like to say like this is gonna be my morning drive to the gym thing, like a lower fat, pretty low fat bar, just
exactly.
A carb and protein is what you're looking for. Okay.
Was that enough on that?
We feel good about that one?
That was only like 5 minutes on that first question.
All right, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes on that one. All right, I'm just kidding. What does tracking macros mean?
Okay, so tracking macros is sometimes referred to as like flexible dieting or if it fits your macros dieting. Mm-hmm. So let's just kind of start with some definitions. Macros is just an abbreviation for macronutrients. Mm-hmm. Macronutrients are categories of food: protein, carbs, and fat. So all food can be divided into those categories. Most foods are a combination of those three macronutrients. Right. Only things like actual sugar or actual meat that doesn't have any fat in it, like really lean meats, are like one category or the other. Most things are a mixture. Mm-hmm. So tracking macros is a way of actually counting your calories, but dividing those calories up across those three categories. Mm-hmm. Because we know the calorie content of each of the three macronutrients, like if you were to weigh them out. Right. So each gram of protein has 4 calories, each gram of carbohydrate has 4 calories, and each gram of fat has 9 calories. So if you're tracking your macros, you're actually playing kind of this food Tetris game where, assuming you have some goal for each of those you're trying to eat for the day, you look at what the content of a food is as far as all three of those go, and you add those up over the course of the day to try to get to a goal. Mm-hmm. So it's a way of controlling calories, but also making sure you're getting
adequate amounts of protein, carbs, and fat, both for general health and for the purposes that each one of those 3 macronutrients serves.
So apps like MyFitnessPal make this really easy because they allow you to just like type in a food search. Almost every food and restaurant is in there. You want to make sure you get the right ones, but you can even scan barcodes on the back of boxes and things. And so a lot of people will use that tool to track their macros.
Right. So it's just, it's an evolution of calorie counting that gives you more precise control over the nutrients you're getting within those calories.
So say if you were eating, you're eating 2,000 calories a day. If you were eating 2,000 calories a day, but you were only eating, a certain percentage of a very low percentage of protein and a really high percentage of fat and stuff like that, the adjustment, we would adjust like, okay,
right.
You can look at your macros and say like, okay, I need to eat more protein and less fat and more carbs, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and we use this with clients that are tracking their food by looking at their lifestyle, what their goal is, and we help them set goals for those macros so that they, have a guide throughout the day to try to base their menu around.
And I was just going to add the reason it matters is when we, coach people. So the calories in versus calories out is how you like adjust like your weight basically. Like, are you going to gain or lose weight? And then by adjusting your macros is how you adjust your body composition.
Right.
So that's
how much muscle you're going to have, how much fat you have, how you feel as far as energy goes.
So then, putting the two together.
Yeah.
Okay. Feel good about that
I think that's enough on that.
Okay.
We'll probably have a whole podcast on macros.
Yeah, that's a good starter. What's the problem with super low calorie diets?
Okay.
I actually just did a post about this.
Yeah.
So like a crash diet, like don't eat anything for 3 weeks or 3 months and then, just lose a lot of weight. That's
it can look a lot of different ways. And honestly, like I didn't realize how many people do these kinds of diets until hearing from clients and doing some research after hearing about different diets. So
can you name like 3 common ones that people would know so they know if they've done one?
Yeah, I don't know about a brand.
Well, not a brand, but just like...
Well, there is a brand. There's one called Isogenics that some clients told me about that they're shakes that you buy. And I think for this male client, it added up to like 600 calories per day of these shakes, and that's all you're supposed to eat. There's a lot of like juice cleanses out there that are essentially super low calorie diets just because that's how many calories the juices add up to over the course of the day. And then there's people who will just like go down to eating something like only celery for a few days or a week or whatever. But all these diets cause rapid weight loss just because the calories are so low.
The calories in are super low.
Right. Like, less than half of the calories that you were eating before or even more. So
so what's the problem?
What's the problem? What's the deal with low calorie diets?
What's the problem with doing that to drop weight fast?
So I think there's a lot of problems, but one for sure is that you're going to lose weight, but you didn't learn anything in the process. So you have no way to replicate that on your own in the future, and you didn't learn anything about nutrition. And I mean, maybe it's just because we're so focused on education that I'm really biased as far as that goes, but it upsets me that somebody does this to their body and has no clue. It will be like, not learning how to budget, but just like going wild with your finances. Like learn about finances, learn how to work a budget, and it's something you can carry on for the rest of your life. So that bothers me a lot. Another thing is like you can only lose so much fat in a day. You may lose a lot of weight in a day, but only a certain amount of that is fat. There's a limit to how many calories of fat you can lose per day. So if you're in a caloric deficit, meaning you're eating less calories than you're burning, and you've maxed out the amount of calories you're losing in fat, well, where do you think your body's going to get that extra energy?
Muscle.
It's going to attack your muscle for energy. Why do we care about that? Well, I'm assuming if you're crash dieting, you're not doing it just to lose muscle and look like a skeleton. Like you're trying to lose fat is what I'm guessing. So being too aggressive with your calorie deficit, #crash dieting, you're going to lose a lot of muscle in the process, which is going to affect your metabolic rate and your ability to be strong for the future. And just, it's a bad idea. Nobody wants to lose muscle. We go to great lengths not to lose muscle. I mentioned metabolism also. Going super low calorie diet has negative effects on your hormones. There's hormones that control your hunger, leptin and ghrelin. When you are in that drastic of a calorie deficit, you're secreting extra of these hormones that are just going to cause you to get hungrier and hungrier. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen when you're in the presence of regular food in the future? You're putting yourself in a place to rapidly regain fat after the crash diet is over. That's the concept behind yo-yo dieting, unfortunately. The body is smart. It doesn't like starvation. If you're in a severe calorie restriction for an extended period, your body knows, should I come across some food, I'm going to preferentially store it as fat rapidly should this guy try to starve me again.
Yeah.
That's what causes, you lose 10, you gain 15 after the diet's over. That's exactly the physiology behind what's going on.
Right.
One more thing on metabolism is, our bodies are really good at preventing or adapting to change. So let's say you keep a extreme calorie deficit for an extended period of time, your body is going to start to downregulate its internal processes to meet that calorie input that you're giving it. Typically this is like decrease in energy, decrease in non-exercise activity, you become lazy, you become lethargic, you become grumpy, all those things. So your body is going to downregulate to try to meet that calorie input. The problem with that is, like, if there's some adaptation to how much calories you need, that's kind of like becoming your new baseline. Yeah. So let's say you're in a really low calorie diet and you're losing tons of weight. You keep it up and then you stop losing weight. Well, you still have more weight to lose. Where are you going to go from there?
You can't go below that already super low number. It's
right.
Dangerous.
So this is one of the reasons with our clients that we work so hard to keep them eating as much food as possible while continuing to help them lose fat, even if it's at a slower rate. It keeps them eating more food, it keeps their energy up, keeps their quality of life higher, and has less negative effect on their metabolism in the long run, and on those hormones that we mentioned.
And like you said, like, it's the yo-yo part of it, it's just not sustainable. But maybe you can, I mean, I couldn't, but maybe you can go for 3 weeks on a juice or a celery or something like that. But then, that next day you're gonna go eat regular meals. And you haven't learned anything, and it's not something you can sustain.
Right.
So you're gonna gain that weight.
People get encouraged by the quick weight loss that they see on the scale, but if they were to step back and realize that some of that is muscle and a lot of it is water weight, then it's not so exciting. I would rather keep somebody eating a regular amount of normal foods, even if the fat loss is slower, and we're not just depleting their water stores, depleting their glycogen, all that kind of stuff. We're actually seeing sustainable fat loss.
Yeah. All right.
Was that too long on that one?
That was good.
All right.
Does eating past a certain time cause fat gain?
This is a common one. Heck, I probably even believed this, myself from, growing up in a family that was focused on weight loss a lot of times. So what is the exact question?
Does eating past a certain time cause fat gain?
Okay. I thought
like people say, like, don't eat past 7 or don't eat past 8. Does that cause fat gain?
Right. I think the thinking behind this is that if you put food into your body and then you don't burn it off, then it's going to be stored. So there's a little bit of grain of truth to this, but not because of the reasons that you might be thinking. The thing that actually is going to control fat gain or loss is the cumulative effect of the entire day, week, month, that kind of stuff.
Calories in, calories out.
Right. Your body is in a constant state of nutrients being shuttled in and out of cells, excess nutrients being shuttled in and out of fat cells as fatty acids. It's this constant ebb and flow to meet our energy demands. And the reason is because we're not always eating. Our body has to have a way to keep our energy in check, unless we're just grazing all the time. So all that's happening. Now, the thing that controls fat storage is if the net of all that happening is more calories than we needed, then our body will store it as fat. Okay. And if the net is that we didn't have enough calories to sustain our energy, it'll pull fatty acids out of the fat cells and use that for energy. Right. So can eating at night cause your weight to go up? Yes, it can. If you weigh yourself in the morning, you might see an elevated number on the scale, but that could be undigested food. It could be, water from the carbohydrates that you ate for dinner the night before. But as long as your calories are in check over the course of the day, total in the week, then that's going to be the thing that controls whether that is actual fat storage or loss. Now, I will say that some people don't like eating late at night because of the way that it makes them feel or it affects their sleep, especially like a really high carbohydrate diet that spikes insulin. So that would be the only reason I would say not to not eat at night, is if it affects your sleep. But again, it's just the total sum.
So the time doesn't matter.
It does not matter.
It's just the number of calories you've eaten in that day is the main.
Yeah. Okay. Unless it just bothers you so much that you wake up in the morning and can't stand to look at that number on the scale, then cut yourself off at a certain time of night. But again, it's what happens over the course of the whole day and the week.
Okay. All right.
Myth busted.
Myth busted. All right. Here's a long one. You ready?
All right.
I've heard people say that the ketogenic diet is good because you eat more fat, you'll burn more fat. If you eat more fat, you'll burn more fat. What's the deal?
Yeah, this is a good one. I've even seen
So if you eat more fat, you'll burn more fat.
Yeah, all the ketogenic bros say, dude, you got to eat fat to burn fat. And I think what they're trying to say is hey, if you...
Well, give us a quick sentence.
I don't do anything quick.
Quick sentence on the ketogenic diet. The
ketogenic diet is a low carbohydrate, high fat, low to moderate protein diet.
Okay. So you're eating avocados and you're eating cheeses.
You're just baselining peanut butter and bacon, basically.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the idea is eat more fat to burn more fat.
You got to eat fat to burn fat, bro. Okay, so here's the deal.
I think he's anti.
Well, it's just I'm not anti ketogenic diet if that fits your lifestyle and it causes you to maintain it long term. That's not the thing. But I don't like when people derail the science of it as an explanation that's just not true. Okay, so our bodies are really good at using any food that we put in it as fuel. Maybe it's not going to be used in the way that we want as far as building muscle and energy and all that kind of stuff, but we can run on pretty much anything that we eat. So that's just part of our evolutionary process. So if you eat more fat, you will burn more fat. That is true. However, the fat that you're burning is the dietary fat that you're eating. Does that make sense?
Not the fat on your body.
Right.
The dietary fat.
The confusion becomes between dietary fat and stored body fat. Yeah. You can survive on just eating fat. Maybe, I guess you just sit down with a tub of Crisco and that's what you eat for the week. But the thing that is going to control whether you're burning body fat over the long term is, are you in a calorie deficit, regardless of how you get there. I don't care if you're eating a carnivore diet, if you're eating only rice forever, or if you're eating the ketogenic diet. If you're in a negative energy balance, is the only way to liberate fat from your fat cells to be used for energy. So yes, if you are eating more fat, you will burn more fat because that's the nutrient you put in. If you put more protein in it, you will be burning more protein. It's not about burning excess body fat because you're eating more avocado or more peanut butter. It's the net energy balance.
And again, the reason that a lot of these things work for people, whatever the diet is, it doesn't have to be ketogenic, is because they have put restrictions. The ketogenic diet lists the things that they're supposed to eat, so they're eating those. They're restricting themselves from the other things they commonly ate. They did, they're not eating what's something you wouldn't eat on the ketogenic diet. Breads and
a tortilla chip.
Yeah, chips. They're not eating these things, so they've eliminated tons of food groups from their diet. So they're definitely eating less calories than they were.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons a lot of these diets a bit work for people.
Yeah.
Because they're restricting themselves.
So any diet that creates a calorie restriction will cause weight loss.
And just following a guideline of something and restricting yourself in some way usually leads people to have a fat loss in the beginning because they're restricting themselves from their normal habits.
Yeah. So if you're losing weight because you're eating more fat, if you're eating more fat and you're losing weight, losing fat, it's because of everything you're not eating that's creating a calorie deficit. The thing is, can you sustain that as a lifestyle?
Right.
Because if you keep that fat intake high and then you reintroduce the foods that you were restricting previously, well, guess what? You just added a bunch of extra calories in. You might get confused as to why the scale stops going down, but the reason is because you added extra energy in that you're not burning. It's going to be stored as fat.
All right.
Is that
Good
it?
job. We have 2 more.
2 more, okay.
If calories in versus calories out controls your weight, does that change as you get older?
This is an interesting question. So the science of calories in, calories out doesn't change as you get older, but the number of calories that you need to eat probably does change as you get older for a lot of different reasons. We talked about how we fight so hard to keep muscle mass earlier, and one of the reasons is because muscle is so much more metabolically active than fat is. The more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you need to maintain it. It's an expensive tissue to keep on your body. It takes a lot of energy to keep.
Yeah.
So as we get older, we tend to lose lean body mass for a variety of different reasons. So that can affect the number of calories that you need to be eating. So if you don't adjust your diet as you lose lean body mass, you're probably going to end up in a positive calorie environment and be storing extra fat. The other thing is we probably get less active as we get older, so it affects the other side of the equation, the energy outside.
Yeah.
So the principle of calories in, calories out doesn't change, but the factors that go into it might change to cause some confusion about, well, what happened? Like, I'm eating the same number of calories. I'm gaining weight now. Did calories in, calories out stop working? No, your body changed and changed the number of calories you need.
Yeah, something changed. Oh, makes sense.
Cool.
For sure. All right, last one. Should you track macros for life?
So I guess this is really like a personal question. I know from our perspective, I think I can speak for both of us on this. I don't feel that it's a sustainable thing for life, for the long term, to weigh and measure your food and do on a regular basis. I do think that there's a period of time, if you're focused on a nutrition goal or a health goal, that you should do it because it brings a lot of awareness. And kind of like we talked about with the tracking macros thing, it allows you to know that you're getting enough of the 3 different macronutrients to reach your goals. But as far as a long-term thing, my hope would be that the people that work with us would learn enough through the process of coaching and through tracking their own intake that they could get to a place where they could eat intuitively without weighing and measuring based on what they've already been doing. And then not only that, but should their weight ever start to change or their goal change or they just want to do something different, they have the knowledge to either go back to tracking or spot checking every once in a while, or even to start adjusting their diet without tracking, knowing what they already know. But I do think it is a good thing to check in on yourself because we're all creatures of kind of habit creep where, we might start to introduce a new food into our diet, or we go on vacation and we kind of like get off track, and coming back to reality through tracking calories and macros can kind of give you a jolt, like, all right, I need a reality
3
check.
days or a week and just kind of double check yourself if you feel like you need to, and then go back.
So to summarize, like, I don't think that needs to be part of your life forever unless you really like it. It should be something that you should do if you enjoy and not have to rely on forever.
Yeah, it's a learning tool.
Yeah.
So I think I can tell a little personal quick story about that. Is like I used to really be into it, and once you kind of track macros for a long time, you almost feel like you can't not track. And I know what that feeling feels like. Like you kind of feel like, well, how do I know what I ate?
Yeah.
And it's kind of ridiculous. But anyway, so that was kind of in that groove right before we moved, and then we moved. We traveled for probably like 10 days. We stayed with friends. We, kind of took the trip slow and traveled different cities. And then we got here, moved in, and, 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month went by, and I hadn't tracked. And I was like, well, nothing happened. And the reason nothing happened is because you've been using that tool, and I was educated on how much what a plate looks like, how much I eat during the day. And so I was just like instinctively eating the way I always ate. And so it kind of relieved me from that feeling of like, I have to track to know what I'm eating, because I knew what I was eating without having to track.
You just made me think of an example, like, when I worked in construction for a long time, like I had to measure things constantly with my measuring tape. And doing that forever using a measuring tape and actually knowing
That's
what
true, yeah.
different measurements look like I don't have to use a measuring tape
can
unless I'm
estimate,
really trying to be
yeah.
precise about something. I can look down on a board on the floor or
That's
look
true.
at something and be like, that's 8
How big
inches
is
long.
this? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's a really good reference, right? Yeah.
so anyway, that's kind of how I feel about
Yeah. Well, with all this talk, I'm hungry.
that. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, cool. That was fun.
Yeah.
So let's do more of these. So if you guys have questions, you can send them to us in a direct message on any of the
And it
social
could be
medias.
training or nutrition, and we'll put them together.
Yeah, good idea. It doesn't matter, or you can ask us personal questions. I don't care. Training, nutrition, personal. Ask us about our dogs. We don't care. Bring it on. So if you don't already, subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll try to post every time we put a new episode out. If you guys have any questions, send us a message. And thank you guys for your support.
Yes.
Have a good day.